So I'm going to start with a story from my book. It's a true story titled Pigeon Karma. In the summer, between my sophomore and junior years of college, I read the word karma for the first time. No definition was provided, and I didn't know what it meant. That was in 1974, and the word karma was still very foreign to our culture. So I rode my bicycle to the library in order to reference the word in their large dictionary. I read, "The law of cause and effect over many lives." I wondered if there was a cosmic process reflecting and balancing our lives. At that time, karma was a good word because most people knew they didn't understand what it meant. It was a word I could contemplate without a need to give it a fixed meaning. Now to pigeons. During my junior year at college, a friend and I were wondering how to make snowballs more interesting. It was winter, and pigeons roosted on a sheltered ledge near the top of a 3-story building. We decided to throw snowballs at the pigeons. To make it more sporting, we kept our distance. The chances of actually hitting a pigeon were remote, but I was getting closer, and I had a Zen moment of direct knowing. I knew I would hit a pigeon on my next throw. I could have put the snowball down, but I didn't. Thwack. That poor pigeon never knew it was coming. I watched as all the pigeons fluttered about in the cold before nervously settling down again. No harm done, I thought, as I walked away. For a fleeting moment, I considered apologizing, but I'm fairly certain I had no idea how to apologize to a pigeon. That spring, I was walking that very same sidewalk, minding my own business. In the exact same spot that I chucked that snowball, I received a pigeon rebuttal. It was more like a splat than a thwack, hitting me on the top of my head. As I confirmed the reality of the pigeon dropping, I looked up and watched as the offender flew straight to the winter roost that I had dishonored. I knew instantly, pigeon karma. Fair was fair, and I accepted their return volley with grace and humor. I bowed. 5 years later, I was in Grand Forks working at the North Dakota State School for the Blind. The school was located next to the college. That spring, I had just walked outside when I saw a peculiar sight. Perhaps a dozen people were loosely gathered, watching a pigeon flutter aimlessly on the ground. I knew it was dying, and I knew what to do. I walked over to the pigeon, picked it up, and hoisted it into the air. The pigeon flew about 60 feet, then it died midair, falling motionless to the ground. There was something symbolic and powerful in providing an opportunity for last flight, so much better than dying helplessly on the ground. The spectators shared a moment of silence. It felt reverential. I bowed and I walked away. In the mid-1990s, as I was writing this story, I made a synchronous discovery. I was living on pigeon property. I discovered that the house that I lived in at that time was once a site for pigeons. Here's that story. The guy that owned our property prior to us didn't build a home or live on site. He had a shack and a garage that he used to house pigeons. Apparently, he got very sick and neglected the pigeons. The shack began to crumble and the pigeons escaped. Rats from the Mississippi River took up residence and ate the leftover pigeon food. The neighbors convinced the city to condemn the buildings. They were torn down. A contractor purchased the land and began to build a house on speculation, a house we bought because one day, purely by chance, I happened to meet the builder. Given all my special physical needs, the house was a godsend, only a half a mile from my work. For over 23 years, it was the perfect place to live. Did I have good pigeon karma, or is it all in the storytelling? One thing is fairly certain. The patterns of my life have changed since the day I thought it sport to throw snowballs at a pigeon. Now I feel connection with birds and with all life. We could call that interbeing. The Sanskrit root karma suggests action and doing one's duty, what we owe to life in this incarnation. The dark side of a fundamentalist view of karma can be seen in the inequality of the caste system in ancient India that continues to influence that culture. The implication was that if bad things happen in this life, it's because of karmic justice for what was done in a prior life, and your best course of action is to accept your life as it is in order to work out that negative karma dutifully within the structures of caste. We are allowed to be skeptical of this view because this view of karma was encouraged by the privileged class in ancient India. Karma justified privilege. The Sanskrit root of karma suggests a broader philosophy, the law of cause and effect through which our actions generate specific outcomes. Here's a classic example. If we are cruel to people, at some point, people will be cruel in return so that we gain experience of what cruelty feels like. The law of karma is open to interpretation by various religions and by individuals. So there's no single view. Here's my view. Our actions create patterns. These patterns create impressions on our world. Harmful patterns can cause suffering. We can become stuck in a rut. Old patterns, old habits that are reinforced as we engage them. Repetition deepens the rut. The deeper we carve the pathways of our habits, the more effort it takes to find a new way. For example, we could believe that the universe is unfriendly. Perhaps it began with, don't talk to strangers, and grew through tribal identity and the filters of media. The result is distrust or fear of otherness. Both conflict and separation are possible. On the other hand, we could groom evidence that the universe is a friendly place, see the good in others, actually perceive the helpers. We could replace separation with a sense of connection. Whenever we open ourselves to new possibilities, seek liberation from small and limiting views, with courage, effort, and intention, karma will provide us with opportunities to grow. You may have heard this one. Gandhi said, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values become your destiny. This is one way to view karma, the way the patterns that we groom, consciously or unconsciously, are reflected in our world. Here's a Sufi story to illustrate. A traveler approaches a city and pauses to ask an old man a question. What are the people like in this city? The old man answers, what are they like in your city? The traveler responds, they are mean and selfish. The old man says, you will find the people in this city to be a lot like that. The next day, another traveler approaches, asks the same question. What are the people like in this city? And he says, It's the same. He gets the same reaction from the old man. What are they like from your city? This traveler responds, the folks in my city are kind and loving. The old man says, you will find the people in this city to be a lot like that. So one of the patterns of karma, one of the lessons of karma is discovering the patterns of our lives. We can explore how our life may manifest or reflect our beliefs, attitudes, and habits of behavior. Recognition of stale patterns can lead to renewal. Karma as guru can become an opportunity to educate ignorance or discord that became too sticky. When you recognize an old and unwanted pattern or belief, we open ourselves to the potential of change or renewal. We can pay attention to the heart's will. We can seek insight through conscious inquiry. For example, if someone has a pattern of being too controlling, the world may respond with some form of pushback. If someone is controlling in their relationships, people might act out in response or become avoidant. They may recognize the cycles of their control and realize the discomfort. They may then become more receptive to the flow of life, discovering opportunities to renew or repair that rigid pattern with more fluid behaviors. Rather than selfish control, they might groom an ability to let go with the flow. Renewing a disharmonious pattern is usually a process of incremental change over time. We can intend future growth by planting seeds of change with imagination and resolve. The ground of our life respects the planting of seeds. In Zen, they say there are only two things. You quietly grow awareness and you sweep the garden, and it doesn't matter how big the garden is. Sweeping the garden is a metaphor for wise action in the world. With care, in our own way, we attend to the pathways of the garden and water the seeds. If we ignore the garden of our life, forgetting to share our unique gifts, whether great or small, then karma may provide a number of opportunities that challenge stale or ignorant patterns, making our lives unnecessarily difficult. We may get a wake-up call. The Buddha may have improved on the notion of karma with his noble prescriptions for practice that improves our engagement with life. Two examples are acting ethically and earning a living ethically. The Buddha was not satisfied with the karma of duty or age-old karmic debt. We can bypass concerns for karma by cultivating insight with skillful means and living through compassion. Many Buddhists do in fact believe in karma, but the teaching is to develop wise and compassionate intention that becomes the foundation for action. Future consequences, or karma, are more likely to be positive when we become more conscious. Better yet, we can awaken to the wholeness of being and get off the cycles of cause and effect, polarity and separation, even if just for a moment. The mystic roots of karma suggest spiritual purification, finding a balance of experience that gradually leads into a unified field of loving awareness. Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield suggests that karma is the teacher. This is what he means by that. The human condition will deal out suffering. That's just the way it is. A difficult life situation or challenge may have something to teach. Our reaction to stress usually isn't, oh, good, another opportunity to learn something. But think about it. Whatever happens to you, countless others have experienced it, are experiencing it. If we can slow down our automatic reactions, we may discover insight and compassion. My own experience with chronic pain has made it easier to have empathy and compassion for others with chronic pain. And it has provided some understanding for me to hold that space. These days, I'm less interested in personal karma and more interested in the patterns that my actions, thoughts, and connections create in the world. How am I linking with the web of life? Am I choosing love over fear, unity over separation? How are my perceptions and behaviors creating patterns that may link with kindred spirits to form a tapestry? For example, when I was diagnosed with celiac sprue, which requires a gluten-free diet, very few people had even heard of it. In May of 1997, the major search engine was Yahoo. When I searched, there were no hits, zero. Within several months, during which I transitioned from resistance to fully educated, there were many online hits, and general awareness of the disease spread quickly. My pattern in the world, in consort with many others who worked independent of my awareness, brought this disease into public view, some might say a little too well. This has happened many, many times in my life, in part because I challenge consensus reality. So, I am currently trying to flip a disturbed ecology on the property where I live. The ecology has been deeply disturbed at least 4 times in the last 150 years. Massive disruption. The work is really hard, and I don't see much progress in terms of creating a new Eden. I see the work as creating a diverse ecological pattern in the world that hopefully will link with others, acting in resonant accord with folks I'll never meet. When it comes to making patterns in the world, here are some big questions. Do the patterns of our life contribute to harmony, wise relationship, and interbeing? Are we holding space for a brighter future? Do we endeavor to maintain harmony with all sentient life? I'm an atomist, so harmony with all life matters to me, although I have more affinity for a tree than for a virus. One thing that has seemed clear to me is that my life has been shepherded, guiding me to certain choices and ways of being. I don't know if that's karma, the Tao, the beam of my life, or some other mysterious process that gives us the opportunity, gives us the opportunity to actualize the life we are given in our own unique ways. I'd like to end with a story about Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist master who was forced to live in exile from his home country in Vietnam. He was giving a special teaching for teachers and received this question: did the war in Vietnam happen to the Vietnamese as a result of karma? Thich Nhat Hanh was silent for a long time, then answered, the Vietnam War happened to all of us. Thank you for your kind attention.